Hey everyone, my name is Andrew Davis, and you are watching Conversations in Pop Culture. And yes, I am scandalous like an Ashley. And I do want to remind everybody that this episode is brought to you by my friends over at Pocket Jack Comics, and they are coming to local comic stores near you. And you can right now check out their Sexy Comics Guinevere and the Divinity Factory and Palace of the Golden Princess at pocketjackcomics.com. And if you sign up for Preston's email list, you get a free PDF copy of those books so you can try before you buy. And those books are coming in March, April, as well as by Living Dead Girl, which is on Kickstarter, which is from the minds of Jason Connolly and Gregbo Watson. And what's really cool about that book is that this is the first character Gregbo has had a hand in creating in about 20 years. So Wow. It's a cool book. If you're a Gregbo Watson fan, that's kind of one of the books that you might want to get. So obviously very important stuff, but enough about that because I have with me Travis Gibb. There's no S in Gibb. No S. And I got it right this time. So I just want to make that crystal clear because there's been many a time that I've gotten it wrong. But welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me. How are you? How you been?
I'm good. I'm good. You know, a lot of stuff's going on, and things are interesting, and figuring out life piece by piece by piece. Right. But they're not here for me. I'm here for you and to talk about you because obviously you got a lot of stuff going on between obviously a bunch of Scout stuff, Granite State Punks, some Orange Cone stuff. I don't know if they were taunting you at MegaCon this year. I don't know about that. By placing you against that Orange Cone.
No. This year they put me in front of Jeff Loeb. So it's not a good person to admit. I had a great experience with Jeff Loeb. One of my favorite books of all time is a book called Kaboom. Are you familiar with that? Not a lot of people are, so it's okay if you're not.
I don't know that book.
It's completely okay. Yeah, it's in the Image Rob Liefeld days. So you've got to be Image, be sub Image, because it's an extreme awesome days, and it's Jeff Loeb and Jeff Matsuda did a book together called Kaboom. It's only about 3 issues. It's 6 issues total, 2 3-issue arcs, and then a couple of one shots. But it was one of my favorite books of all time growing up as a kid. I love it. And I met him and I got him to sign it all. But here's the craziest thing, Andrew. I'm a very good judge of character. I don't know if Jeff Loeb loved me or hated me. But it's one of the two. Because his sarcasm is so dry, no idea. I tried to be funny and witty because his signature was $20 a piece, and I was like, because Kaboom is $1 box, all day $1 box. I was like, hey, thanks for signing this. It's now worth $10. I paid 20 and 10. You've been an investor, and he liked the joke, and he signed all of them. For $20, he signed all 7 copies, which is really cool. Not $20 a piece. I think because he knew I wasn't flipping. Right? I'm not going to be flipping these.
So let's actually talk about that before we actually get into some Kickstarter stuff. Obviously, I've had some very cool experiences in comics, and some people are very nice. Some people understand what you're doing for a fan, what's going to be in a personal collection, what's going to be hung up on somebody's wall and be charged. And then some people also don't get it. And some people are just there for the money. And what is this like for you? Because obviously you get a sense of who's there at a con for the money and who's there because they love comics. And it's kind of tricky because I've been in situations where I'm like, this person is going to be a dick and the nicest human being ever. And then you've been in positions where you're like, this person is going to be the nicest person, and they're a dick. And then I don't know if it messes with your head a little bit, but it messes with mine.
No, it doesn't really bother me. I don't charge for signatures at cons except for if you're CGCing, and only because I have to bring another, the CGC guy is going to come and witness the thing and be in a different, it's just such a pain in the butt. And I really I kind of be like, what do you got? $5, $2, $1. I don't care. It's not a set thing. It's just more of a, this is now a process instead of just me talking to a fan. And then I am losing my interaction with that fan. So let's say you came to get something CGC. You can't sit and talk to me for a minute, right? We're down to business. We got to get that CGC guy back to the thing. So that's the only time. So other than that, I love it. But, when you're small, I'm not small. I've been around for a long time. In fact, I just did the math. I have to figure it out, but I'm very close to my 50th book. I don't know. I know I haven't gone over 50, but I'm pretty close. I got to figure out the number published, which is wild to me. It's wild that I've got that far. But finding out, but one of the coolest things about conventions for me is I have a person at MegaCon who literally comes to my booth every year, buys everything and gets it all signed. If my wife's not there, we'll come back the next day to get my wife sign it. If like I have a letter there or anything. So, those things matter to me. Like we have a great relationship. In fact, now when they come, they drink Diet Coke. So I have Diet Cokes ready. So I give them a Diet Coke and they replace it with a Pepsi for me. So those things are so much fun and, make it all worthwhile, man. For all those bad experiences, you get that. One more, go ahead.
Yeah, no, because I want to touch on this because I think this is something that's very complicated right now in Kickstarter. And to me, Kickstarter isn't just selling me a book. There's a fan interaction, there's a fan experience, there's customer service involved. Obviously, I sell on eBay, and I always try to give a good experience where I always ask my guests, and not my guests, my clients, is, hey, what else do you need? And I mean, somebody where I hooked somebody up with a book that Kyle had, and I didn't have the book, but I kind of made the connection. I introduced them. I don't know how the deal went. I'm not going to say who the client is. I don't think Kyle's going to mind me mentioning his name. And hopefully they sold the book. It was involving Comics Elite with their cat fight pouches book, which is an awesome book. But like the goal is that's customer service, where if I don't have something, but I know somebody does, and I think that's a real issue right now in Kickstarter is I feel people don't understand that your job on Kickstarter is to produce a great book, get it to me in a timely fashion, get it to me undamaged, and customer service. And I feel that's a big problem, at least from my experience. In my last 20 that I backed, I felt the customer service side of that is lacking a little bit.
I think it's a tough beat. There's some people who it's a whole thing. Like a Pat Shan book will come in a sleeve. It'll be wrapped in foil. It'll be stuff. And other people are just doing a little. The negative is, I don't think anybody realizes how much Kickstarter. I mean, I think people realize it, but like how much it takes to make these things and how much it takes to get all that stuff. So I think people rush it sometimes when they're sending stuff out. And I also like to communicate. Like the best I can do is, hey, how many of these being printed so I can share the rarities and all that. And I don't think everybody cares about that. And even more now that we're in the kind of the like boob cover phase where the not safe for work books have really taken off. It's getting even crazier because you're getting people who are in that not safe for work space who, much like yourself, don't customer service. Say what you want about the not safe for workplace. They take care of their books and they send them out when they do it. I know there's some bad eggs, obviously, but the average person who gets a not safe for work, they know that they want that book pristine because they paid for it, and they paid for every aspect of that, every boob, every J, whatever case, they paid for all those aspects. So they want to make sure that they have it in the best quality, no scratches, no nothing.
Yeah, no, I guess the way I feel is that I've dealt with a lot of people who don't communicate.
Right.
I've dealt with a lot of people who really don't have an understanding that all I'm asking for you is to bag and board it, bubble wrap it, ship it in a Gemini. I'm sorry if I'm paying $100 for a book.
Right.
I kind of expect it in a Gemini. I mean, call me crazy, Travis. Call me crazy here.
It's crazy.
And even when somebody's late, I'm not saying you're a bad person because you're late, but I find also people think it's acceptable to be late, and it drives me mad. It's not acceptable to be late. If you're late by 3 months, you're late. You're not a bad person. I'm not asking for my money back, but you can't tell me that that's an acceptable practice. And I think that's an issue here where because all I want to hear somebody say is, I know I'm late. The next book I do, I'm fixing that problem. That's what I want to hear.
Yeah, I absolutely. And, I used to be able to pride myself in these interviews where I'm never late, but the last couple of books, both my trades are late for quality issues. I wanted to make them better, so they're running late. And we've had some personal stuff going on in my life. I shared it in an update that I'm not going to really go into detail, but like literally we had a couple of months of hell. Like everybody in my extended family had car accidents and COVID and deaths and all sorts of crazy stuff. It was a wild couple of months, but I know who you're talking about, where there's people who literally go, well, it's Kickstarter. It's okay to, it's like, no, it's not. It's really not. Like we decide when we're shipping. That's, unless the world shuts down again, like COVID, there's no reason for it to not hit your deadline, right? You can hit printers now. Printers, yes, the money they're charging a little bit more, but they're delivering pretty fast for the most part. There is a bad egg right now, but again, that's temporary. Those things happen, and nobody gets mad about a couple of weeks. They get mad at months and months and months, and then no updates. It's months and months in avoidance, right? They're not telling you what's happening. They're not going stuff like I'm late on Cthulhu Invades, but every month I send a video of where we're at of the production and explain why. Like I show you exactly where it's built, so you see it's being built. Where some of these guys, they won't even show you. They'll be like, "Oh, we're working on it. See you next month," or they won't reply at all. They'll just ignore you, and then 5 months later it comes or it doesn't.
I mean, look, I've publicly called out somebody, and the person's response said it all, where they went ape shit on me, and that told me everything I needed to know. Meanwhile, it was $28. $28 is not going to break me, but it's still $28 that I worked hard for. And it annoys me more that this person was on my show and I was championing their book.
Right.
Because
And you don't back everybody who's on your show. Some people do, but you don't. So I think that's a statement.
And so I feel bad, and I don't think I have responsibility, but I said this with Matt Knowles on and what I said to him, I think that's how you say his name, man, unless I mispronounced his name, and if I did, I'm sorry. But what I said is that I feel a little responsible if somebody backed that book and they're in a similar situation now that I'm in, because of my recommendation. Because I don't ever want to recommend your book to somebody and then you don't deliver. And I'm using you as an example because I think you understand the point.
And I have 100% delivery rate, so you're good.
but you can understand how I feel, because I'm not in this industry to back somebody's project, say you should go back because I backed it, and then put somebody and then 5 people do it, and then it's $100, and that's 5 people who just lost $20 on my recommendation. That's not good for my brand. It's not good for your brand. It's not good for anybody's brand.
Did this person say why they're late? Have they been communicating?
They communicated once after 2 years, and then they haven't communicated.
Oh, so this is like super late. This is not like this is not like
not Pat Chan being late by a month.
Right.
Okay. It's not Pat Chan being late by 3 months. This is somebody who is now late by 2 years and has launched about 6 Kickstarters in between.
Wow.
And I don't want to name the person on air.
Here's the problem, Andrew. I'm very relevant with Kickstarter. I can think of 4 people who that mold fits, and that's too many. You get what I'm
saying? Does it have a C in their name?
Any of the people that I'm thinking of? No.
Then we're not on the same page on this one.
But what I'm saying is it happens so frequently,
Yes.
Some of these people, and I have one that one time was 2 years late. He just did an update yesterday, which was weird. It's like, and he read it, was like, I did the best I could. I can't pull it off. Like, did the math and like sent like a half finished digital, said you could print it. He's like, I tried. And I was like, no. And then tried to get you to back his next thing. I was like, no. He's like, I've done everything that Kickstarter requires me. Yeah, but what about ethically requirement? And I don't know if you know this, but you can sue. Like you can sue a Kickstarter person, because even though Kickstarter says that like things are not promised, that doesn't mean you didn't sign a contract with each individual person. That's a completely different thing. Those are separate things completely.
I did not know that.
Kickstarter.
I did not know that. That's actually really, really interesting.
Yeah.
I guess it makes sense. For $28, I'm not going to go sue somebody. But if I back $28,000 worth,
right,
I think I would. And that's why this must exist to some degree, because somebody must have backed at such a high tier that once you go into a $10,000 range, and then, I mean, I've never seen somebody back a $10,000 position, but I'm sure it's happened.
Especially in the invention area, right? Like that stuff, of course.
So that's really interesting. I did not know that. Because I didn't know that, because I thought Kickstarter absolved that and it would go to mitigation. And again, I'm not a lawyer, so I actually did not know that you could do that. That's fascinating. Looks like I know what I'm doing tomorrow now. Thanks, Travis.
I want my $20.
Lawyer, oh, it'd be great. You know how funny it would be for $1 somebody did that?
Right. There's a thing called the Creative Fund that backs everything for $1, and they hold everyone accountable who hasn't done it. It's all been a big master plan. They've been backing everyone for $1 for years, so they could do a class action lawsuit against everyone.
That would be something else. That'd be something else. But I do want to back out of this, and I do want to talk about your Kickstarter, because I think the one you're running right now needs some love. And I know you're fully funded, and it's Voodoo Nations, and I enjoyed Voodoo Nations. I made some money on your retail package.
Yeah.
I made about $5, and I still have like $4 left. So it's not. I'm not getting rich off of you, but
You're not getting rich off me, right?
But I broke even, which is the first step. Which is important, right? I mean, all things considering, my goal always when I buy a retail package is to break even, because if I break even, and that's including the eBay fees, by the way. So eBay takes 13% for those who don't know. So I broke even on that, but obviously this is, I think, the fourth issue.
Correct.
And what is the story of Voodoo Nations? Because this has been going on for what, 3-4 years now?
Yeah, I think this is the fourth year. We didn't come out with a book last year. It just got lost in the shuffle, because I did Granite State Punk and Coins of Judas. Both were my first times in the direct market. I didn't know how time consuming that was, to message all the stores and like make sure you hit the deadlines, solicitations, all that. On Kickstarter, you just kind of, when it's done, you ship it, right? Like, no big deal. But there's all these things. You got to get it up by March or this and that, final cutoff and deliveries and all that crazy stuff. So we didn't get one out last year, even though this book has been done for about a year. I got finished about this time last year, which is crazy to me. Voodoo Nations is about two missionaries, RJ and Brent, and they go to Brazil. They meet up with this evil voodoo priest who messes up their marriage, kills one of them, puts a spirit in them, and then they've been traveling the world to New Orleans, to Mexico, to actually, that's the only other two places they've gone. But they've been traveling the world, getting hunted by various voodoo priests that's kind of get involved in their life and kind of mess up their marriage. The husband wants nothing to do with anything anymore. He's kind of wants to embrace this new life. The wife is trying to save him, and it's a love story about, how far are you willing to go for your loved one? When they're not right, when they're not going well. The story was based off of a real life experience. When my mom died, I kind of went a little crazy. I was partying a lot. I was not thinking right. I was doing a lot of fucking stupid decisions. And my wife sat next to me and fought through it, even though I remember sitting in front of her and going hey, I don't know if I'm going to be the same person. In fact, I know I'm not going to be the same person after this. I am not going to be the same. I don't know if you're going to be the person I love. I don't know if I'm going to come back to a normalcy. This may be who I am now. I don't know. Because I was doing shit where the next morning I was like, what the fuck was I doing? I would just do things on a whim. I'd be like, I want to go to the bar at 1 a.m. and pick a fight because I want to fight and be done at 2. I was doing weird, crazy, stupid things that I shouldn't be doing. And that's where this book spawned from. I wrote a fictional version to kind of, see what that looks like. And that's where we're at.
So let's actually talk about this and the book. Obviously, basically, Brent has a spirit in him, and his wife is trying to save him, and they're trying to battle stuff, and it becomes very common. I mean, the way I read it, and I have a different interpretation, and feel free to interject, where I view it as a very physical battle because there is physical confrontation. I view it as an internal battle, obviously with RJ and Brent, and also and Bishop, Lucas to some degree as well is kind of influencing that internal battle, and then it's also very much a spiritual battle. I feel at the same time, because you have Christianity, because I think they were missionaries.
Yeah.
And then you have this alternative belief system. And I'm trying to pick the most respectful words I can, because I don't mean to disrespect anybody's belief systems, but clearly all of those things are having a conflict. And it's very interesting when the spiritual battle is taking place while physical battle is taking place. and then an internal battle is occurring on multiple levels. And what is that like? Because it's very, very interesting. This.
Yeah, I tried to, we do use a religion of voodoo, which is the proper term for voodoo, and then we use a Christian, but specifically a Lutheran. We don't do Catholic, but do Lutheran because we do Ash Wednesday. That's not known for everything. But what I like to do, on the religious side of it, there is good voodoo priests and there's bad ones. We show both in the book, and then same thing with Christianity. We've shown good ones and there's bad ones because I want to show that faith doesn't, just because someone has faith doesn't make them good or bad. That's not the way it works. Sorry if that offends people. That offends some part of our nation.
I don't know if you saw who was on right before you. I was speaking Tomorrow's End, and they're a camp project, and they definitely show a little bit of a darker side to Christ and what their message is and what they do. And it's not all fluffy and warm hugs, their books. And sometimes you see that the heroes are not the good guys in their books and their projects. But sorry for cutting you off. Continue.
Yeah, I didn't see that. But yeah, that's interesting. But, so I do that mental thing. But I really, one of the main cores of the book is a spiritual belief in Christianity called equally yoked. So they believe when you're married that your souls are entwined, like your souls become one. And if you affect one soul, you affect the other. And we see that as we're going through of the marriage, because in this world, I am a Christian myself, and I go through that. But I really love telling this story because it's a beautiful thing, because I've heard so many people who don't fight for their marriage or don't try to figure out things. And my wife and I weren't even married at the time, and she just she just had this love for me. That was beyond my understanding, and I think it's a beautiful thing that's rare, and I really wanted to write about it, and that's what came through this. But you also have to make it interesting, right? So we got voodoo priests and cool guys, Bishop Lucas, and obviously there's some twists and turns. Why is he doing this? What was the purpose? Is it just because they came to his land and he got pissed off, or is there a deeper, darker thing that he's doing? Those mysteries are fun, and I love the world trekking, right? I love going to stuff, and especially people who study voodoo. I go to Brazil, and so when you study voodoo, voodoo's not like Christianity. Christianity's the same everywhere. They may do a couple of different rituals, but like literally, the spirits may have the same name in Brazil and New Orleans, but they don't have the same function because it reflects the world around them, which I thought really interesting. So this spirit, who's normally fun-loving in Brazil, maybe fun-loving is not so great in New Orleans, so he does a different thing. And I really liked studying that and doing that. And out of respect for the religion as well, I stayed the hell out of Haitian voodoo. I'm not getting involved in that. I did zero Haitian voodoo priests are in there because that stuff is they're very particular, and I didn't want to get it wrong.
So let's actually talk about that too a little bit.
Sure.
Because what did you say?
I said, sure, let's do it.
So obviously, when you're writing something, there are topics that you can go in and you're going to upset some people, but you're not going to cross a bridge you can't go back over. And with Haitian voodoo, it seems like it's that bridge that you don't want to go into. So like, it's kind of like if you're not an expert in an area, sometimes you say, look, I'm not an expert in an area, but this is what I think. You say, look, this is just my take on it. But again, I'm not an expert in that area. So I'm not going to go tell somebody how to do a comic book. I could say, hey, I'm interested and I like this cover that you did, or I like this style, but I haven't done a comic book. So I'm not going to go tell somebody how to write a comic book. I might say, look, I like action stories. And if you have an action story, I'm going to be more of a backer than if you have a psycho thriller. But I'm not going to say, I'm never going to tell you how to write a psycho thriller comic book. But what is that like? Because I feel like with certain topics in comics, you can't win on that book, and you're only going to hurt yourself if you even go into that.
Yeah, I got a call when I announced Voodoo Nations 1 from a Black creator from the Black community, and he was like, hey, man, you're traveling some ground there. A lot of people in the Black community really, really respect and love this. So I want to make sure. He's like, I'm not telling you what you can and cannot write, but I am saying that there is an eye, there is an opinion, and you can easily offend someone without knowing. And that was one of the reasons why I didn't do the Haitian part. But it's been a struggle since the start of this book. In fact, someone on Twitter a year ago really made me laugh, and he's like, it's Kickstarter season when white guys are writing about voodoo. And literally there was like 5 white guys who wrote about voodoo in a row. For some reason, we are very fascinated with voodoo. Us white guys, right, writing about voodoo. So you've got to be careful. I'm not as brave as Quentin Tarantino. Look at what Quentin Tarantino is willing to write in his books. I would never write any of those. I couldn't even use the N-word and broke down. Like, it would have been very okay for that character to say, for a couple of those characters to say that. And I wrote it in a script one time, and my wife's like, "I'm editing that out." I was like, "You're right. I'm not brave." So you got to be careful, and unless it's absolutely necessary for the story, I think better to proceed in the way of caution. And that's a very important thing for me when I wrote this book, is showing good aspects of voodoo, showing the religion on both sides. And same as Christianity, right? If I'm doing a battle, I can't go, "Oh, Christians are the good guys," right? We're not in a world where that is okay anymore. Back in the day, no one got mad that the Catholic priest won in the Exorcist, right? No one got mad. It was okay. But in today's society, you've got to kind of show all aspects, and then, oh, this is a bad branch, so it's okay. I don't know why we've got to that. Good and evil is just not as black and white as it used to be.
Yeah, I don't know if it's so much that it's not, black and white anymore, but that people also just have more interpretations of things, and that people are more aware of their surroundings. I mean, I work in obviously education, and there's a lot of editing going on, and conversations that happened 3 years ago. The conversations that are happening today wouldn't have happened 3 years ago. About books, and using even just, being more pronoun neutral. And I mean, some of these books were written like 10 years ago, and it's now on the table when a program's getting renewed. And that's a brand new conversation for my company. And it's weird because it's kind of like we've never had this conversation, and we're all sitting around the table and nobody knows how to bring up the topic. And it's not, people are like, "Yeah, we could do that fine," but nobody knows how to bring up the topic, and it's so weird, and we just live in a weird time. But I digress.
Yeah, I mean, people are talking about it right now. People are getting upset about this morph thing, right? He's non-binary, which for me makes completely sense for a character. But like, people are like, X-Men's woke, and I'm like, but X-Men was woke. And then people are blowing up old Stan Lee stuff. Well, he didn't say it was Malcolm X. Well, he has in interviews, but he's also said that wasn't the basis. He's done both. Like, and it's okay for things to evolve. Like, oh, this resonates to you in that way, you should go into that, right? If it's resonating and working, right? But it's about civil rights. So it's so interesting. Like, even the X-Men, we're having a debate of what it is, even though it's all about, people who are, feel that they're unseen, fighting back and trying to be relevant. I mean, that's what the X-Men are. It's about a minority, or some sort of minority, some sort of unspoken group that's trying to have an equal voice. You can't argue that. Like,
didn't they basically tell the entire world we're forming our own island during Civil War? And they formed their own island, say we're our own country now.
Yeah.
Like, I love that.
The X-Men as a whole, like, if you take everything they've done, especially Professor X, he's a fucking villain. He's done more evil shit than Magneto. If you take all that stuff that they've done, like, there is no way in a real world that we would not wipe these people out. Like there is a reason for them to be hated and feared, because they do crazy shit. Like, in the current run, they're on the run, but right before it, they literally figured out immortality. And we're never sharing that with any of you. Oh, we can make sure that you don't die, you don't get sick, you don't get anything. And yeah, the rest of the world can't get that. Leave us alone. Oh, you're mad at us for that? Okay, all right, we got an island. Oh, island's not far enough? That's fine. We'll take over Mars. We've got a whole planet. How are you happy? Like, what do you want? It just gets wild.
I really do enjoy the X-Men a lot.
Yeah.
Because But I agree in which that I mean I enjoyed X-Men Civil War. I thought that was funny that they were like, and then Deadpool joined them too. Didn't he just join them like?
He does that. That's the only time I like Deadpool. So Deadpool most of the time annoys me. I like him in his own book, but when he's in another book, he tends to bug me. But I do like when he makes a crazy decision that just makes logical sense. Like he'll be like, "Oh, I'm going to side with you." It's a better example for Punisher, but X-Men's done. There was a thing where Civil War happened, right? Everyone knows the Civil War. The hero sprite Punisher shows up. They have villains on the side because they don't want to be registered, and Punisher kills them. And he's like, "What?" Like Captain Smart. He's like, "But they're bad guys. Like this is what I do." That's what makes comics fun is stuff like that.
I agree. So getting back to Voodoo Nation,
Yeah.
because the thing that I also think is interesting and where we're getting to, because this is issue 4, there's one more issue I think left in this.
Correct.
And what I think is on the table, and this is just my thoughts, is that I don't think death is off the table in this book, where I think that this book could end with one of them dying, RJ killing Brent, and I don't think it's off the table. And that's what I think is getting interesting about this issue, where we kind of pulled all the punches out, and now it's an all-out, everything's on the table. And I think it's interesting because in issue 1 and 2, I felt that we're in a conflict, but you've escalated it in 3 and 4, where now I could see RJ dying, I could see Brent dying, I could see both of them dying, I could see one of them sacrificing themselves for the other to have a breakthrough, or I could see, Bishop Lucas just killing both of them too for another reason. And so what is that like? Because this book now has gone massively dark, in my opinion.
Yeah, it was supposed to be a 4-issue miniseries. So I wrote the 4 and I wrote an ending for 4. And then I wrote it and I was like, you know what? It's not satisfying enough for the people who have been reading this book and invested in it. I'm going to give it an extra issue because I introduced all these other voodoo priests and you kind of have to give them all their ending, right? And I didn't want to just like write it off. And you ever read those comics where they got too big and then the last issue has a 2-page spread and each block will have one of those characters you just saw in the past and they get a block of here's what happened to Billy, here's what happened to Johnny, here's what happened to Spider-Man, I didn't want to do that. So I expended to an extra issue to really flesh out have that big fight. But, this book feels epic. This is the first time that RJ and Bishop Lucas, I show it on the thing. They meet face to face. They haven't seen each other in about a year in real time because Brent's been going and doing all this stuff and she's been traveling the world and she had to wait for the Day of the Dead to cross over to do some stuff. So it's been wild. And this book, like you said, it ramps up. We started with just voodoo priests and now we've got friggin' angels. We've got Grim Reapers. We've got some wild supernatural stuff. It's a supernatural book, kind of blowing up. So yeah, absolutely. That's what it's like. And building to that and getting to a satisfying ending for everyone. Cause I don't plan on writing Voodoo Nations again. I think this is it. I'm not saying that Voodoo Nations is done. I'm just saying I don't think I'm going to write it. I think this is my Voodoo Nation story. I may hire, there's Greg Elises, who I've talked to over the years, to maybe hire him to do one that shows Hasten Voodoo. Because I think the series has weight, but I think this is my story. This is my story that I want to tell in it.
So let's actually talk about this too, because I don't know how you feel, but sometimes I feel people stay too long in a series.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes it's television does this a lot too, more so than I think comics do, but comics do it sometimes as well. But sometimes, great, you had 4 seasons and you had 4 fantastic seasons in TV, or you had 20 issues in a comic. And then it's kind of like, is issue 21 really necessary, or do you want to end on a bang? Right. And I think it's a problem where I get that if your book's making money, that's great. But there's also a position where it's like, do you want to write shit? Or do you want to solely your comic or damage the legacy? And I think it's tricky now because I think sometimes people don't know when to say, I'm good with 5, and then we're moving on to the next one. And so what is that like for you? Because if you're good at 5 and you felt like you did a good job, You have a complete story. You could put it into a trade paperback, maybe bring it to a publisher at some point or shop it around. You're kind of good and done, and you have 5 solid issues.
Yeah, I'm happy with that. I think unless you have a story that needs to come out, I think you should end things. Like I think people don't like to do endings. I think like what if somebody wants it? What if it really picks up later? Then talk about that later. I think people are always trying to just expand it. And there is something, I do believe what's killing comics is short form. Like I do believe these short stories are killing comics. I think the reason why manga does so well is there's long form, there's a lot to get into, there's a lot to read, there's a lot to stuff. But that doesn't take away that a good trade paperback is fine, right? God Country is a one and done. Watchmen is a one and done. It's okay. Like these things are okay to just be finished. I think you can have both and just plan out accordingly how you want to do both. So yeah, I think it's okay, and I personally have no problem with it. I mean, I wanted to tell the story. We've told this story, and this book has been cursed, as you know. We started out with Luke Stone, and then I've had different color. I've had a color switch out. There was a time where literally my whole print run was damaged, like it was printed out of order. So I've had to reprint it. Like it's always had something that's gone. Like last year, we couldn't get it on the schedule, so it's been cursed. So I'm happy to it be done. But it also, it made me sad. There was a time when I hated this book just because of all the drama associated with Andrew. And I was really sad. I was like, shit, this is a book about my wife and I fucking hate it. What does that say? And it's not because I hated the work. It was the extra out stuff. But over the years, I've grown to love it. The people like you who've read it and been like, I really need to see how this couple ends. Like, I really need to see how it ends. And I don't use foul language in the book, but I do keep it really dark, which I think is really interesting because all my other books, you'll see a fuck everywhere or this and that, where this is not that. I kind of write a story that doesn't need that, but kind of tells it and building to the big satisfying ending that you want more. I want you to want more. I want you to read this issue or the next couple issues and go, man, I wish I knew more about that angel. Man, I wish I knew more about this voodoo priest or that voodoo priest. That's what I want for people. I'd rather leave you wanting more and you not getting it, but having a satisfying book than exploring every backstory of every character and it being, defiled, like, killing, eating off the bones,
Yeah, no, in which sometimes I like things being untidied up.
Right.
I'll give an example, and I'll mention this, and hopefully the manga One Piece. It's a hard one to miss, but there's gonna be stuff, and I mean One Piece has entered its final arc, and there's gonna be stuff that we know nothing about, that was mentioned that we don't know what happens with 17 characters, but that's okay to not know what's happened with a particular character and where they've ended up on this and that. Cool, there's somewhere and we don't know what happens. And maybe that's a good thing because guess what? The world's a vast place. And just because a series ends doesn't mean the world ended in that. And sometimes, you know what it is? It's just that we told a story or you told a story and the story followed points A, B, C, D, and E, and we got off the train at F. And that's
Right.
the story. And I think sometimes creators, and I see this, and I'm sure you see it too, where they're trying to do everything. And I don't know if they have a real understanding of A is here, which is your start, and you want to get to point H.
Right.
And it doesn't matter if you go to point F first and then go back to B and then go to E to D to C and then back down to F and through F to H. That doesn't matter. But I think a lot of creators just don't understand storytelling.
Right.
That's
Yeah,
what
a
I.
lot of them. I mean, and you can tell, especially, and that's the negative of the Kickstarter, right? For every book you pick up, like mine, who, I know about writing, I know about the 3-act structure, the 5-act structure, I'm trying to tell you, beginning, middle, and end, and everything I does that. There's some people who are trying to figure it out as they're writing these books, right? So they're like 6 in before they're like, oh, I don't know where this is going, where they're just kind of writing, you get that. But yeah, I think you need to have an end, and I don't think you need an answer for everything. It's nice if you can get it, but It's okay if you don't, because it brings mystery to the universe, to the world.
Do you also feel that on Kickstarter right now we are also in a cover variant trap to some degree as well? Which because I also feel that to some degree also hinders story, where if somebody does 10 variants and they're doing 50 to 60 to 100,000, or even if they're doing 20,000, all of a sudden sometimes their story gets messed up and people don't even read their story, but they like their cover art. And that's what I'm starting to see a little bit on Kickstarter. And I mean, I would know because I run this business where I sell a lot of variants and I love cover art. And there's nothing wrong with cover art, but a lot of stuff that I pick up, I don't even know the story. And I just know that it's an awesome cover. I mean, I'll prove a point right now. I mean, I picked up some of these
Sure.
and I don't know anything about this book. I didn't even read it, but I know it's Taylor Swift. And I know Shikari did a great job with that cover, and those covers sell out like crazy in my eBay store because people like Taylor Swift and they like that cover and they like the artist.
Yeah.
And I've seen a lot of that on Kickstarter. And so I don't know how you feel about that, but I also feel that's part of the problem to some degree why we're in this weird place, because there's a bunch of great stories on Kickstarter,
Right.
but there's a bunch of bad stuff, but a bunch of bad stuff does like 20,000.
I mean, a bad person, if they have money, can buy a famous cover and sell covers, right? I can bring a Watso cover, a Shikari cover. It's just money. It's just money, right? Like, my book doesn't have to matter on that, which sucks, but that's a reality, and it's the quickest way to make money, right? You'll notice the more covers I have on a campaign, the more money I make. Why is that? Because for every one person who just buys cover A, there's a bunch of people who, if 5 of them buy the all 7 cover combo, that's going to raise my numbers up. It's just the way it is. I try to keep it in a reasonable amount of time, of 4. I try to get a good cover on each one. I try to at least have the covers tell the story of what's going on and do the best you can. But yeah, I definitely feel like the cover game gives you a false sense that the book is good, but I don't think it tricks anybody, right? You've never seen any of these books with all these crazy covers that, oh my God, I've got the good books don't need that. Like Sync right now that's live. I'm sure you saw it. Sync is like at 27. Doesn't need booby covers, doesn't need any of that stuff. Covers just by the main artist, didn't have anybody else do it, and he kills it because the story's good. The covers are just secondary. You look at White Ash, same thing, or even going to Pat Chan, even though he does a lot of covers. Look at Destiny New York. It's a trade. You can't really have more than 2 or 3 variants. It's good, so it's going to sell. Versus the other ones.
No, I mean, I agree that story matters, but I also think that sometimes like and Pat has put in a lot of work with Zenoscope, and Pat has a lot of trust in the community. So I don't think when I back Destiny New York and people come across it and they get into the Pat Chan machine, as I like to call it,
right?
Pat obviously has a huge following from Zenoscope. So if you like what he did with Van Helsing, it's easier to say, cool, I've never heard of Destiny New York. Let me try it. Oh, it's Pat Chan. So, and Pat has earned all of that. There's no doubt about that, because Pat has spent 10 plus years building that reputation. So, but
I actually have a weird story that, I have a story that I think you'd like about that from MegaCon. There was a guy who sat with me. I asked him what kind of comics he likes, and he said he started naming off Zenoscope stuff, and I started looking up what he liked, and it was all Pat Chan. He has been following Pat Chan, even though he didn't know his name, which I thought was fascinating to me. It's like I started with Robin Hood, really liked Robin Hood, and then I was like, okay. Van Helsing. Oh, all right. So you're following Pat Chan, you just don't know his name, which I thought was really interesting.
That is interesting. I got into Zenoscope through Gretel. Right. And then I got into Chuck Dixon, and then I read some Pat Chan, and then obviously I read a bunch of Van Helsing, and then I read Robin Hood secondary. I think Robin Hood came first, and I'll be honest, some of the Van Helsing stuff is better than the Robin, and some of it's better than Van Helsing. But I also don't think it's the writing. I just think that sometimes a story is just better. It's just because it's not an issue of writing. Sometimes just a concept is better. Robin Hood. I'm trying to think of like the first trilogy of Robin Hood is killer. It's just killer. It's brilliant. That whole first trilogy is amazing. But then like the last stuff that Pat wrote for Van Helsing was great too. Like the last three were fantastic. So, but I digress.
I think you're right, and I think that stuff comes down. I mean, Pat Chan would have to be here for me to 100% confirm, but I thought that some of that stuff comes down. Zetascope has like a basic plot, like the editorial team of Zetascope, and then they write it. So it's not always the writer itself. They get the basic plot and then they flesh it out.
Also, it's that sometimes a character is just in a weird spot. Where
Right.
sometimes a character, if Robin Hood just had a massive breakthrough thing, you can't raise the bar like to the next level so quickly again, where you got to reset it. So it's kind of like in wrestling, you have a freaking banger match, and you need a cooler match. You need to reset the crowd so that you could reset the expectations so that it could spike up again. And
Right.
sometimes it just happens in comics, and I'm sure you have had situations like that too,
Sure.
where it is what it is. But I digress. But I do want to talk about this book and even how it's been cursed, because obviously Voodoo Nations is a solid book. I don't think it's your best book. I think Broke Down and Four Dead Bodies is your best book. I really do think that. It's the book that I enjoyed the most, and I think it's actually your best book because I think it's witty and I think it's fun, and I think the story is unexpected, where I did not expect how that story was going to go. And I thought it was very much a surprise, and I thought it was coming out of the gate, and I also thought it was a fun book. Right? You could disagree. Feel free to disagree. But
I do, but that's okay. It's still my writing, so I'm happy either way.
but my whole thing is that I feel that this book should be at a higher level on Kickstarter for what it is. And I don't know if it's just that this book has just had a rough bout, if it's just somehow not connecting, or if the whole algorithm is messed up, or if it's something else in play. And I'm very curious because I know a bunch of people are having a hard time on Kickstarter right now, and they've had it for a while. And I have my theory, but I don't want to trick you or sway you into my theory. So I'm curious what you think.
Well, there's a couple different things. I think the reader base on Kickstarter has one. I think the direct market. We don't like to think this, but I think comic stores are doing better. I think there's better. I know that doesn't fit the narrative of what people are saying, but there's better stuff in the comic stores. Whether or not they're going to the comic stores and buying them, whatever. You've got James Tierney telling independent stories with the Deviant and World Tree, and you got Jeff Johns doing this Ghost Machine, his old track there. You got Scott Snyder doing something. So I think there's a lot of indie, like good indie stuff that isn't the norm so I think that's one aspect. Two, I think everything has trends. Right now, the trends is these booby books, these little risque books. That's a trend on Kickstarter. It's a fact. They're doing better than anything else. It's just a fact. So I think that expends it too. And so if that's the trend, so let's say the boobies are the trend, and you have friends you've been following for years who go into that route and you follow them, well, that's going to take a lot more of your Kickstarter budget, because a normal, like, not regular book, not safe for work, is going to cost you about $20. If you're going the not safe for all realms, you're going 30 to 40. So you're basically doing two Kickstarter books on one campaign. So I think that's part of it. I also think that the algorithm of Kickstarter is not as good as it used to be, meaning that it is spreading people to things that they're not interested in. So I don't think they're linking things as well. I think because of the influx of booby books and of that stuff, they don't know. They're kind of overcorrecting, right? So, all right, cool. If it's booby book or not booby book, we're just gonna put them here and try not to mix because we don't want to offend any of the audiences. And I think that overcorrection means the search algorithm isn't as good as it used to be, which affects things. I think the book is still going to do fine. I think we'll still get to close to 200 backers, but I'd love to see growth, and I don't think we're going to see growth on this campaign.
Because, I mean, I'll tell you my thoughts a little bit, where I don't disagree with the bad girl art and the movie books and the not safe for work books.
Yeah.
I also feel that money's tighter right
Sure,
now.
yeah, of course.
I think we've entered a phase where COVID, everybody was home, people had less things to do. There was less things to bars are back open, movie theaters are back open, events are back open. And so that has also swayed out money, I feel, where if you had $300, you might only have 150 now because you want to
Right.
go to a concert, you want to go to the bar, you want to go to an outdoor event or a sporting event. And so I think that's an issue a little bit as well, where there's a little bit less money or half less money. I also think that you have places like Mount Olympus that are doing interesting books. I think you got Merck, you got Comics Elite. Obviously, I think the Taylor Swift thing and those books came in, and I think that they took a nice big chunk in the last few weeks, and they
Sure.
obviously interest a bunch of people. And so I think that's one of the hottest books and that people have been picking up. And then you have things like, obviously I said, Merck Mag is killing it with certain things and they're releasing a lot of books. And then you have all these smaller up and coming publishers like Stupid Little Monkey, Zombie Eats Flesh, Bad Donut. And I think those companies are also starting to kind of take some market share, but they're not necessarily on Kickstarter. And so I think that there's a lot more choices for a lot of books. And I think that's also part of it. And also, I think there's more people doing Kickstarters. And so if you have 600 people doing campaigns, there's only so much money. And so
Sure.
now you have a choice and you're going to have winners and you're going to have losers. And so that's what I think. Um,
Yeah,
and
I think we're at the phase of this is hard, but if you were struggling to hit 2 grand before, you're not going to fund anymore. Like I think that's where we're at right now. I think there's less people buying Kickstarter books. We didn't even talk about student loans. I think that's student loans are people need to pay them now. They didn't have to pay them for a few years because of COVID and everything. I think we're in that stuff. So I think that if you were struggling before, you're struggling stuff, and that's why you've got to find a reader base. Creators supporting creators is one thing, and that'll help you get to a certain point. But you have to have a separate thing of readers because if you're just relying on creators to support creators, you're not going to make it.
I think I'm going to go a step further, and I haven't really discussed this, but obviously I sell books on eBay and I'm coming to Whatnot. And the reason why is that I'm learning that eBay is becoming tougher and tougher and tougher. And I
Sure.
think that people have to figure out also that maybe you have to figure out where to even move your books, who can help
Right.
you move your books. And I think you also have to say, cool, maybe if my Kickstarter does, 3 grand, I can print another 50. And sure, I can do some cons, but can I sell my books on eBay? Can I sell them on
Right.
Whatnot? Can I sell them on Facebook Marketplace? And even just finding a buyership. And I think
Sure.
that's also part of the issue too, because at a certain point, even if you are not necessarily finding a readership, but if you get an extra $500 and now you went from 3 grand to 3,500, I think that's also part of the problem. And when I speak to creators, I don't think they want to put in that additional work. Where I feel like a lot of people say Kickstarter is the be all end all.
Right.
And I think you obviously have a publishing deal with Scout, and that's helpful in certain ways. And obviously, I think you've gotten away from the mentality that Kickstarter is the be all end all. I don't think I mean, if you still think it is, correct me if I'm wrong,
No,
but
I mean Kickstarter is just a means to me to get things published, so I can hand it to a publisher to level up. My goal is Marvel and DC. Not everybody has that goal, but that's my goal. So I need to make as many books as I can to give a great portfolio, and hopefully someone looks at the portfolio and go, "Dude, this guy's got his stuff." So I make professional books and do it, and it's working. I had a meeting with a major publisher 2 weeks ago that a lot that separately from everybody else, I get to pitch. I don't have to have art. I don't have to have anything. I can pitch just a story, and they'll find the artist, find the whole thing. No people don't get that anymore, but it's because I'm leveling up and doing the work. Because my end goal is not just the comic; it's to make more comics for more people. That's why I do more and more every year.
no, no, no. It's interesting. I mean, I think unfortunately people don't want to put in the work,
Right.
and I think it is a very complicated thing. I didn't get to this stage in my show, and I am just getting good. I'm not even great. I am just getting good. And it's taken 10 years, and it's probably going to take another 10 years for me to even be above good, to be
Right.
honest. But every time I do an interview, but what happens is that I do get bigger and bigger and bigger guests now in a lot of
Sure.
ways. But, it takes a lot. It takes a lot of emails. It takes a lot of finagling. It takes a lot of hitting somebody up. And I don't think that people realize how much work it takes. For me to I'm having a voice actor who plays Fujitora from One Piece on. That's a big deal. Guy's been an ADR director and basically produced and helped produce Neon Genesis Evangelion back in the day with ADV films. So big deal of somebody who's been very instrumental in anime. But I don't think that if I didn't do all of his friends, that interview would be coming about.
Sure.
And to get all of his friends took 5 years of legitly asking and asking and asking and asking, and then you get one, and then you get the next one, and I think that's what you've done. And I think, unfortunately, I speak to people, and they just I could hear that they don't want to fucking do it.
Well, but you can see the difference. So even though my numbers aren't like crazy huge like I want them to be, I'm still funding in like 3 days where other people aren't. Some people are still struggling to get 100 backers. I'm going to that next level. I'll end up at 200 something. My numbers are growing, just not at the growth I'd like. And again, that's me. Like, I'm not telling people what I'm doing, but I have been doing something new to try to get a fan base. It's not for this book. It's for another book, one of my other books. But I'm in different places to reach fan bases because, being in the same Facebook group, same people over and over again, it dies. You only get so many people who are going to add to that, and I build my communities. I have my Discords and all that to build communities to help do that. And you've got to do that. You can't just rely on Kickstarter to build your audience because there's not enough. Kickstarter is just one avenue for you to sell your book. There's tons.
I agree. And this is why I want to go on Whatnot, because you can build a very effective community on Whatnot.
Right. Sure.
And then, there's people who are doing it. And when you have 5,000 people following your store, you may not have 5,000 people watching you, but that's 5,000 people that if you're live, they're going to get notified that you're live. And even though you're selling a book, if all of a sudden your names are all the same, without a doubt, there's going to be crossover.
Yeah.
And so that's one thing. And then also what I figured out is that content sells. I mean, I hate to say it, and I don't know how you feel, but obviously I started doing a lot of micro content, and I went from 345 subscribers to about 574 in about 8 months. Now, I'm not thrilled about that growth, but that's a big growth for me. And some people might say, oh, that's nothing. But when you're doing a little bit of micro content with no marketing, that's the thing that made the difference. But it's a lot of fucking work.
Well, and it's about those audience. We mentioned Kyle Willis earlier. When I sell it, I have everything on my website. You can buy all my books on my website. But you know what? If I go to Kyle Willis's shop and do a Whatnot show with him, I'm going to make $1,000 that day, even though you could have just bought it on my website any day of the week. Because Kyle Willis has an audience, and if Kyle Willis says my book's good, it means something, and that matters. That's why these Whatnots and things like that, these things matter, but they're all part of a whole.
Yeah, so obviously, I mean, Voodoo Nations is going on, but you got some other stuff too. So obviously, Ground State Punks is happening, and a lot of stuff's happening there. Are you gearing up for the third one in that series?
We finished the third one. The Coven just finished. So the Kickstarter. So Diamond will get that later. We're working on the fourth one right now. That's in development. Next month, I have a new Broke Down coming out. We have a new small little one-shot Broke Down for. I have some anthology pieces a few people worked on. We also have Coins of Judas from Band of Bards. They're going to do a trade of our volume 1 and 2 of that to make it a big giant trade next month. So we've got a lot of cool stuff coming out, as well as our Cthulhu Invades and all the other cool stuff that we do. So we've got a lot of things coming up the pike.
So what is that like for you? Because obviously you have Orange Cone, then you have Coins of Judas with Bands of Bards. And you have the Ground State Punk stuff with Scout. Yeah. And obviously, I mean, all this stuff kind of leverages into each other. I was speaking, obviously, I don't know how many people know my show, but I'm going to state it anyway. Obviously, I interview some adult entertainers. And when they're doing camming, but then they're doing their OnlyFans stuff, that stuff tends to leverage against each other very effectively because somebody sees their name on one site and they Google their name, and then it brings them to the other site. And then the other site brings them to that other site. and both sites work collectively together. And I think that's kind of where, obviously, not saying you're doing adult entertainment. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying
Yeah,
is
but
that
it works the same.
it works the same is the point. I want to clarify the point. Because I want to make sure everybody understands before somebody's like, because I don't want a clip that's insinuating something else. This is after hours. This is what we do on Friday nights, guys. This is what we do on Friday nights.
Oh, sorry. It was Tuesday.
Everybody has a beer. It's all right. It gets a little funky. We all make a lot of money. How do you think I keep the lights on in my house, guys?
Sure.
By robbing a bank, of course. But don't tell anybody. I'm on the run still. But like, what is that like for you? Because obviously, when you have a book in Scout, you have a book with Bands of Bards, and then you have your own Kickstarter going on. I mean, all that stuff is leveraging against each other, and I think that's another thing that a lot of creators may or may not understand. And again, it takes a lot to get there, though.
Yeah, I mean, so I've got enough creds, that I can get into most cons for free. But even that, the higher you go, the better cred you're going to get, So I that helps me leverage that. It also helps me leverage my name, If you Google my name, it's not just my Kickstarter that can come up. It's not just my website. It's Diamond's distribution. It's Band of Bards, it's Scout. All those things help, solidify that I'm someone who you want to work with. And then the sales numbers, I try to make sure the sales numbers are high in all those. I sell a lot of comics, and I don't mean this to offend anybody. If anybody gets offended by this, most comics right now are selling in the 500s for indie comics. That's just the way it is. I'm still in the thousands. I'm not at the 2,000 or 5,000, but I'm still in the thousands of all my books because I work hard and I hustle hard, and that's important to me because I want everyone to know that getting a Travis Gibb book is a positive investment, right? You're going to pay me because I did so well that I made enough money for your company that we get to share some of that wealth. So, we're trying to work that and leverage that to bang my success. And, I brought some people over from Scout, but you know what? A lot of people want to stay with Scout. They'll be like, oh, the Coven's out. Cool. I don't want to pay that $20. It's worth me waiting the 6 months for it to come out for me. And that's cool. But then I'm building both audiences. I'm building my super fans. I know that my super fans are going to come over to Kickstarter. And the ones who aren't, they're just going to wait, which is completely cool. And then we're doing the reverse with Band of Bards. Band of Bards, we've had all of our $5 stuff in comic stores. Well, now we're coming to Kickstarter with the trade because I have a Kickstarter audience. Now Band of Bards can leverage my Kickstarter fame to help them make this book a little bit bigger than it would have been just if they just did the Diamond release, So it works both ways.
No, it's interesting. Again, this is not my space. I just buy and sell comics, and I am more than happy to buy and sell my comics because it's so much easier for me just to buy a book for 20 than sell for 60.
Right.
And I also have a different mentality in what I'm doing, where it's not a secret for those who want to know, where I will buy a book and then I will sell it, and then I make about $16.45 in pure profit on a $60 book that I bought for 20. After fees, taxes, and repaying back the book. And then I take that money and I will just buy a good dividend stock and I will get paid monthly for it.
Right.
So again, I have a very different mentality. But I'm not interested in being a creator in the comic space. It just seems so hard. It just seems so hard. And it doesn't seem like it's getting easier.
Right.
And I hate to say that, but I don't have the itch.
Right.
It's okay. You're giving me the shame approval here.
No, I mean, you've always been that way. You've always been more of a flipper and trying to figure out the market and try to understand it. And what I love about you is though, I've seen you, come on here, say when you've got it wrong and say when you've got it right too, which I think is not a lot of people do. Like always people want to talk about their success, but they never want to talk about when they didn't do the right investment. It didn't work out. Like the Taylor Swift, for every good Taylor cover there's a lot of bad ones that are not selling crazy,
I would say that on the Taylor Swift trade, it's 30-70.
Sure.
So 30% of them are fantastic.
Right.
the like this right here in the metal. So the metal sold out within like 10 minutes.
Sure.
And the virgin metal sold out within like 5. The trade sold out, I think, in 10. And I
Right.
sold one of mine for like 135 on a $55 book.
Nice.
So and then I sold the virgin for like 90, and that was, I think, like a $50 book. So and then I sold the foil for like, I think, like 85, which was also around, I think, like 50, give or take, somewhere in that range. So those all were great. But then the trade dress isn't moving. But that was like a
Right.
$25 book. But then there's a super gold version of that book, that the set, and that's $125 that I sold. But then there's the base set, and half the base set moved, and then the other half didn't. But theoretically, with all the trades, that's why I say it's like 70-30, because 70% of it isn't moving, but the Shikari stuff and that base set pays for half the base set.
Right.
So I'm the first person to say that, but I've also undersold books. I've also oversold books. So again, it's a collective on the whole package. But again, I don't recommend anybody doing this unless you are fully committed and you know what you're doing, and you have risk tolerance. Because I mean, I don't know what I've gotten wrong, but I've gotten a lot of stuff wrong in this sector. But it is what it is.
All it takes is T Swift telling Swifties that you don't want to buy this, and then you're over, because she can control her fans that way. Luckily, she has not cared about the comic in any way, shape, or form, so that helps.
That I mean, like, I bought the Travis Kelce's. I thought they were gonna do good. They haven't moved for me, so that was bad on that play. But
Sure.
and look, I was wrong. I was expecting Travis Kelce to propose to her after the win, and I was wrong on that. I was very wrong about that.
Right.
But if he did, I would have made a lot of money. I would have made
Right.
a lot of money. My bookie gave me really good odds, and let's just say I had 10 to 2,000. So he gave me like 1 to 2,000. So I put $10 on Travis Kelce proposing after the Chiefs won. So half the bet was met and the other half wasn't. But
Right.
imagine if I won that bet, right? Everybody on Kickstarter would have gotten a whole pledge. They would have gotten just straight down the
You
whole
shared the
thing.
wealth.
I figured that, but nobody was supportive in the comic community. I'm like, guys, you all realize if this happens, all of you are going to get money from me, and nobody was supportive. It's very upsetting.
I'm sorry about that.
It was in your best interest, everybody. Clearly.
I should have called Taylor. I should have called my people.
Yeah, you should have. Somebody must have known and could have made it happen.
Right.
We needed that Patrick Mahomes magic.
Right.
I mean, did you watch the game? I mean, that was.
I watched half of it. I got sick, so I left at the halftime show. I left. I was not feeling well that day, so I slept all day. So I watched up to the halftime, but I knew the Chiefs were going to win. I felt it in my heart. Like, it's just the way it was going to be.
I was ecstatic because I made a decent amount of money. On $30, I made about 75. So I was very happy.
Sure. A lot of people made money on that day, yeah.
And then I bought stock with that money. But I digress. Me and my investment advice. This should not be taken as investment advice. I do not want to be your financial advisor. And if I did want to be your financial advisor, the only person I'd be financially advising is myself, and maybe Travis if he so chose.
Travis Kelce, by the way, not Travis Gibb, for the record.
No. I only advise people if I add an S to their last name.
Oh, okay.
So
I would advise Travis Kelce. I would advise him and advise him to, do that knee on the knee, and then you'll make bank.
So many things I could say. But I actually do want to dive into this whole Kickstarter stuff and even what you're doing, because again, I think what you've done is fantastic. Going from, what was it, like negative burn?
Yep. It's one of my
all the way
early
to
books.
here.
Yeah, I actually just did the math. Like I said, I'm coming up to my 50th published book, which is wild.
So obviously you've done everything. Obviously you've also done the whole Cthulhu Invades Are you doing Fables next with that?
Yeah, we're not doing Fables because he can't. It's much like that Michael Scott episode where he declared bankruptcy. You can't just declare bankruptcy, Mr. Fable. You cannot just declare that it's public domain. It doesn't work that way. But we are doing. We're going to do fairy tales next. Yeah.
And so obviously, I mean, the Cthulhu Invade stuff is great. I think Wonderland was better than Oz. No offense.
Sure.
I felt
No, I think it is better. I think each of them will get better. Neverland, which is almost done, is the next best one because I'm meeting better people and better connections and making better books. You know, we're
I
getting
didn't
good
read Neverland. I didn't read it yet, so I can't tell you if it's
right.
better
If it's better, right.
because I haven't gotten it yet. But when I do get it, I think it's going to be I'm going to read it and then I'm probably going to reread all three of them and then I'm going to probably say, okay, cool. Oz was a lot of fun. Wonderland was better than Oz. And then Neverland is going to be interesting, to say the least. But again, I'm not judging it yet until I have it in my hands and I sit down
Sure.
and I will fairly critique it to the best of my ability. But yeah, so obviously though, I mean, you mentioned what you want to do is that you want to be in DC or Marvel. And I'm curious because I don't want if I was going to comics. I mean, I have one 6-issue arc I would love to write for DC, and then I'd be done. And then I want to write Teen Titans West because I think Teen Titans West is amazing, and I think doing the Teen Titans in San Francisco, the San Francisco Titan Tower would be a lot of fun for 6 issues, and have them kind of be like the Rebel Teen Titans, but be more like sort of gray and not be necessarily good guys, but not be the bad guys. And I have an idea for it. I have a pretty good concept, but it would have to be under DC Black. And so that's what I would want to do. And I would do it for free because I just want to do it. And it would be a lot of fun. But I am curious though that why you want to go to the big two, because to me, the big two don't carry as much weight as they used to. And I think there's better places. And I think kind of the creator owned space is where everything's at.
I agree, and a lot of people agree with you as well. But it's what I've always wanted to do. I don't think I feel like I will ever fulfill my goal until I get to write, some of these characters that I fell in love with. They're what made me fall in love with comics. It's not about the money. It's not about the fame. It's not about any of that stuff. It's not to level up my career. I can do that in creator own space. I could do that by getting a good image title and getting my name there, working through Vault and doing that whole thing. But there's something about these characters that I really want to tell, and I really want to tell my stories of. I think I have a love for them, and I think I have a knack for it. I just actually got in a fight with somebody the other day, and they're like, "You want to write for Marvel and DC?" I was like, "Yeah." You're gonna sell at your indie roots. I was like, "No, like one does not oppose the other. Like I can still do both." I think people think if you want to do that you never want to do indie. I'm going to always do indie. I'm always going to want to create my own stories, my own universes, all of that. But that doesn't mean I don't want to play with Spider-Man. It doesn't mean I don't want to play with Gambit and X-Men and Nightwing and Spawn and all these cool characters. I mean, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is a dream job for me. Like all these things I really want to do. And I think they're achievable. So I'm going to keep going until I get there. And I'm not going there to change the world or change the status quo, but to lay my stamp because that stuff matters, to be part of Spider-Man, Peter Parker has more fictional friends than we will ever have in our life. He is a fictional character, but he will outlive us. Like that's fascinating to me. You know what I'm saying? Like that's crazy.
It's interesting. It's interesting that you bring that up because I had Steve Stern. I don't know if you know who Steve Stern is.
No.
Steve Stern did Zen Intergalactic Ninja.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I know that book. Yeah.
So obviously we were speaking, and what Steve said to me is that Zen will outlive me, Lamar Supreme. He'll outlive you, Andrew. And it's kind of a crazy concept when a character is going to outlive.
Right.
I mean, I'm 31. I don't know how old you are. I think Steve's a little bit older than you. And I think Lamar's a little bit older. He might be around your age. But he's a little bit older than me. But it's one of those things where it's kind of crazy to think that if you create a character or even Spider-Man or Superman, that stuff's gonna outlive us. And it's cool, but it's also like, wait a second, like how influential is Spider-Man Peter Parker?
Right.
So, I mean, it's just interesting that you brought that point up because I think it's something that, until it's said out loud, I don't think people realize.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's super important to me. And I don't know why, because I am like 1 out of 100. When I talk to most people, they're like, "Well, I'll let Marvel and DC beg for me one day," and I'm like the opposite. I'm like, "Do you know an email where I can start begging? Because I would happily work for them." Like I'm the opposite. I want that so bad, and and I think I'll get there. I do. I didn't think that when I started this because it seemed so far away. But as I keep working, I think I've got enough juice. You know, I'll probably be making Venom, right? Uncle Ben and Venom mixed together in the Edge of Venom verse, because I'm not good enough for the Spideyverse. I don't think I'm going to be writing Spider-Man or Avengers anytime soon, but I do think that I can get into the like one shots and the little stuff, and that'll make me happy. That's good enough for me for now as I grow and keep doing this stuff because it's super important to me, and I love modern comics, and a lot of people don't. Like I buy tons of modern comics every week, and I read them every week. I love them. I'm not this hater and like, oh my god, it's not exactly how I remember it when I was a child. Sorry, not my problem.
So let me ask you this about modern comics, because I'm curious. I think people's expectations have gotten out of whack on comics and storytelling. I'm going to ask you a question, and hopefully you're not going to get angry with me on this question. I really enjoyed the TV show Ted. I really enjoyed it, and I understand that it's low hanging fruit. Tom Hutchinson was teasing me a little bit about it. I'm like, I thought this was great because I turned it on and it occupied me for 40 minutes and I was laughing for most of it. And sure, were the jokes, not the greatest jokes on the planet? Sure. But you know what it is? I just felt it was a coming of age high school story, and him and Johnny are just getting high all the time and they're just screwing around and trying to get into trouble. And I kind of just thought it was great where it's like it accomplished its mission. Did it reinvent the wheel? Not really. Was it as edgy as Ted the movie or Ted 2? Not really. But did it entertain me? Yeah. And I think, I don't know how you feel, but I feel like a lot of people are saying this needs to be the next greatest thing on the planet. And I need you to like it. And I need you to say, I reinvented comics and I'm the Messiah. Like that's legitly what I feel people want versus saying, I'm just gonna write, Uncle Ben meets Venom. They're like playing frisbee. Like to me, like isn't that the point of comics to entertain me?
Sure. So what's the question?
No, I mean that I don't like. I guess I don't understand why there is so much hate and why people have forgotten the point of a comic is that you spend $5 and it's supposed to entertain you for 15 minutes or 5 minutes.
Yeah, I think it's like this, right? I'm going to use a wrestling analogy because I know you're a wrestling fan. Did you watch the Royal Rumble?
I'm sorry, I only watch men getting thrown over a rope every 90 seconds. Of course.
I think this year's Royal Rumble is the best example that I can tell you about the way I see that stuff. The Women's Rumble, every person in that match got to tell a story, and it connected to the next story and to the next one until it became a big finale, right? So we had this interweaving story where everyone got to tell stuff. Even people who you knew weren't going to win had their little story moments, right? They had this beautiful stuff. Versus the Men's Rumble, where everybody's like, my spot matters when I have my spot, and then anything in between is just filler and a waste of our time. I think that that's where we're at with modern comics. I think that the majority of people want the Men's Rumble, right? They want this beautiful, they want like just their moments, and none of the other things matter except for that moment for that character that you like, and that being the whole thing. Where me, I'm very happy just telling stories which have little moments that lead to a big finale that really makes you satisfied and feel you good about it. It's good long form storytelling. And I think that that's where we're at in the comics market. I think a lot of people want these big epic and adventures that need to happen over and over again, instead of telling little stories that just build the character and develop it, and hopefully make impactful and make those bigger stories matter. Make those bigger moments matter.
I could see that. I mean, I'll be honest. I've been disenfranchised with Marvel and DC for years, and
Sure.
I don't know what it's going to take for them to get me back into this. I mean, because I don't know a good story from Marvel or DC right now, and I mean, it's a problem, and I don't know how to get back in. And I'm very confused on how to get even into Marvel or DC or where to start. And I feel like I'm missing something. But then I go and I'm read a Zenoscope. I'll read some stuff from Image. I'll read some other weird stuff in the indies. And I'm like, okay, we're getting somewhere. I'll read some Voodoo Nation. I'll read, obviously the Cthulhu Invades stuff.
Right.
And I don't know how to come back home. Not to steal CM Punk here, but like I don't know how to come home to DC, which I loved 10 years ago. And no, I'm not going to cut a corny promo that has no edge to it. But I will put somebody through glass. But and that's where I'm disconnected, and I'm curious because I don't know if you have any recommendations because you read a lot of modern comics and
I have tons of recommendations. The problem is, both Marvel and DC, regardless of how great they are, because there's some great stories in Marvel and DC. The problem is their business, and they're just trying to sell you the next thing. So there's so many crossover, so many stuff that's going to turn you off faster than I can keep you in. Does that make sense? And that's the problem with with the companies and why they're not retaining. They're retaining people like me because I never stopped, right? If I would have stopped, I'd probably be in the same boat as you, and I never stopped. Most people quit. They grow up. I do not. I stay the course. But Nightwing's better than it's ever been. Teen Titans right now is, you said you're a Teen Titans fan. Right now, it's really, really good. The best writers on it. On the Marvel side, anything by Jed McKay, it's gold. His Avengers, his Moon Knight, his Doctor Strange. I've never thought I'd like a Doctor Strange book, but I fucking love it. Every month I get excited about it. It's on the top of my stack. But as you notice, these aren't the books that you expected me to say, right? You expected like the Spider-Mans or the X-Men. Those books are good, but they're just good, right? They're not amazing. They're not blowing me away. Ultimate Spider-Man's good. Is a little bit better than average, but it's building these things. But the difference is these books are way better than they get credit for on the internet, right? A lot of people like bash the internet. They don't read the books, where they're way better. They're more in depth. They're telling new, unique stories. They're not just pandering. You hear what they're doing, and it's just not true. Like, they're doing some dark and crazy stuff. The problem is, we always want new, bigger, badder, and we also want nostalgia at the same time. And it hasn't worked. It's not working in anything that's trying. Star Wars to any of these things that we want nostalgia. It's just not working. It'll work for a minute and then it won't last.
Yeah, no, I mean, maybe I'll just go to my comic shop and maybe I'll go pick up some Teen Titans. And maybe I'll take your advice and I'll say, oh yeah, Charles was right. I'll be the first person to say you were right. No problem in which that, but like, I don't know how to come back home. And I tried to hold on for as long as I could, and I couldn't hold on any longer when I left, like 5 years ago, or not 5 years, maybe 3 years ago, because I left kind of in the middle of COVID. So I'm like, reading a lot of these comics and I just wasn't happy. And it was just becoming expensive and it just had to go because it was just like this is not worth my money.
Right.
And that's how I felt. And I'm not opposed to trying Marvel or DC again, but like that's just how I feel. But I digress. But I do want to ask you three more things before I let you go. Um, but obviously, which characters would you want to write for Marvel first and for DC first if they called you tomorrow?
I'd like to write Gambit for Marvel. Obviously, Spider-Man's the main answer, but like, let's be realistic of what I could get. I would want Gambit or Nova, or Ghost Rider, like one of those characters. I think would be really good for me. I've got really long arcs that I think would do well, so those would be my first pick. But I'd love to land if I could have whatever I wanted. It would be Spider or Daredevil, of course.
Okay, and then obviously I want to take a step outside, of comics, and I do want to talk about wrestling. And
Okay.
so obviously we are in a very interesting position in wrestling. We're not going to talk about VM at all because that's a crazy entity in its own right. That whole thing, but it's created a unique position where we have The Rock now in this, we got Roman in this, we got Cody somewhere here, Seth Rollins is around, and where do you think we're going with this? Because WWE has pivoted, has had a page turn, has switched up the plot, has shaken up the book. All the characters fell out, and they put them back into the panels. And what do you think WrestleMania is going to look like?
Uh, we're gonna look at Cody Roman, Rock special guest referee. Rock betrays Roman last minute. Cody wins.
Okay.
I have no idea based on the elimination who's going to win the elimination for Seth Rollins because I have no idea who they're going to face him. I'd like it to be KO, so it's not going to be him. Probably Drew McIntyre, which is a bad play, but I think they're trying to keep him. I think they're afraid to lose because I know he hasn't signed yet. I think they're trying to keep him. Even though, like, I think Drew going over to AEW is literally he's going to get lost. There's already 1,000 big guys over there. Like he's going to get lost. So, then Bailey. I think Bailey's going to come out on top. I think she's going to win. I think Gunther's going to retain whoever he fights. I don't know who it's going to be, but I think he's going to retain. I think you're going to see the Usos. I think that's what this Raw was about, is getting the Usos to fight WrestleMania. And those are all the matches I care about.
So you're not a fan of the Judgment Day versus the Awesome Truth?
I mean, I love R-Truth. He's amazing. But I think all that's doing is building R-Truth and burying Judgment Day and everyone around him. And I don't think that was the intention of that storyline.
I have a different opinion on that, where I think they should have stretched it out, because I think R-Truth was the most important thing of the whole, and made the Judgment Day relevant in a time where they have been irrelevant, and the only relevance was Rhea Ripley.
Yeah. Yeah, I think if they would have made him go face, I think they could have made half it, split it, and made it go face. I think it would have been the smart move. Let R-Truth bring him to face. I think that would have been the smart move, but they didn't do it. I mean, they have destroyed the Damian Priest character. He's one of those, they do this every couple of years where they just don't let him cash in, and they weaken him so much so we don't even care. I don't even care, like, when he does it now. I think Dom is still good. I think that they were talking about it. Dom Brock was the rumor. I think that would have been a great match. I think that would have been some good stuff. I'm really sad that we didn't get that. So, I think it's great. But yeah, they've made me not care about the Judgment Day. I actually just want R-Truth dude. If they let R-Truth and Miz, retain the titles, I'd be happy with that. But really, I think it's a waste. I think Damian Priest should do something. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if for some reason they're stupid and let Cody lose, if Damian Priest takes out Seth, because I think Seth's really hurt. I think Seth can do one match, and I think he has to give up the title. I think he's got to get some stuff. I think he's actually hurt.
I mean, I have my own theory on what WWE should do, but I have a crazy idea, and I think it'd be brilliant. I would like to see Seth Rollins versus Becky Lynch. That's what I want to see. That's what we all want to see.
I don't know about that. I have no desire to see that. However, I would like to see Rhea Ripley in the Royal Rumble or get the IC title.
Would she be so? Would she be the second or third woman to do that?
I think she'd be the third woman in the Rumble, but I think only China's won the IC title. I think that's it.
Yeah, I think China might be the only one. I thought there was one other. But I could be wrong.
Yeah, as far as I know, it's only China. I know in the Rumble, you've had Nixie Jax, you've had China, and then Rhea would be the third. But what would be great about Rhea is Rhea is not a big girl. Like China was huge, and like Nia Jax was huge. Where Rhea, if you put her with a bunch of the bigger wrestlers, you'll see that she's not as big. But I still think she can hold her own.
Fair enough. I just want to see a family affair between Seth Rollins and Becky Lynch, and I want their kid to be the referee.
I'll stick with CM Punk. He's not even the man in his own household.
So many things, but remember, you know how you were handing that guy a Diet Coke? CM Punk might hand you a Pepsi.
I'm fine with that. I'm a CM Punk mark. Like I know, like he looked like shit at the Rumble. He looked like shit, but I still love him. I just love him. I don't care. I don't care if he's, if he's showing his age, he can't keep up, and he's just one of those guys gonna have to try. I still like. I'll pay to see him.
He needs to be a bad guy. Sure. I wish he came back, and I wish he doesn't need to be a full bad guy. He needs to be the Punisher. That's CM Punk. He's the Punisher, and he should be gray. He should be like an anti-hero who does some bad things here, some good things here, and you don't know what you're going to get on the particular day if he's your ally or your foe. And I think it'd be fun because then he's in a tag match, and you don't know if he's going to screw his tag partner or not, and you could have a lot of fun with him. But that's what I think. But I'm not writing for WWE anytime soon.
Yeah. But I mean, I think they've been doing a great job. I think the pivot for The Rock has been great. Because, even though I didn't want Cody to fight Seth Rollins, I think the promo that Seth Rollins said of why it's a better match than Roman was believable. Like it was a believable answer. I didn't want it, but it doesn't mean it wasn't believable. So I think they've done some good job there in building that stuff. I'm excited to see.
I think they saved their ass, given the circumstance, and given the horrific circumstance of what has come out. And again, I'm going to say it, and I'm going to say it the nice way, and I might piss off people. People are innocent until proven guilty, but it's not looking good.
Sure.
For Vinnie Mac is the nice way to put it. And it's pretty horrifying. And it's I mean, this if you didn't see this coming, if you're shocked by what was alleged, I don't know what to tell you. You've been living under a rock.
Right.
I mean, this isn't new. It's just that it's finally coming out more as a fact than anything else. But I think that they've done a hell of a job to get away from that. And they deserve credit as a media company, because I don't know what other company could have navigated that circumstance better than the WWE. Whether you agree or disagree with what Vince did, that company handled that like a champ. But I digress. But we've been speaking for a little over an hour and a half, and I do want to give you a chance to promote yourself. We covered a lot of stuff. Hopefully I did a good job. If not, I'm sorry. But it's a Ghastly. It's like Pokemon.
Right, but it's also Venom, so it's confusing.
I mean, it's Ghastly. It's Gengar. It's
Venom.
Hunter. It was $10, man. It was on sale.
Thank you for having me. All you can find myself at travisgibb.substack.com. Voodoo Nations, we have 9 days left. You want to come back we'd love to have you on. You can catch up on all 4 issues and see what we're all about.
And then I've been saying it, I'm going to keep saying it. You got to support indie. What that means is when people have Kickstarters, you got to go back to Kickstarters. When people have their books in Diamond, you should go order their books from a comic shop. If they have a web store, you should order from there. If somebody's selling their books somewhere else, you should go pick it up. If they're at a con, go support them. If they got a YouTube channel, go support them. All that fun stuff, because it does go a long way. And I get that money's tight, but sometimes if you can't afford a book or you have everything, following somebody on social media, retweeting them, whatever you're going to do, it goes a huge way, and it's very helpful sharing out people's content. As far as I'm concerned with everything that I got going on, I am Pop Anime Comics on Twitter, Pop Anime Comics on Instagram, Pop Anime Comics on Facebook, Pop Anime Comics on TikTok, Pop Anime Comics on YouTube. I do have an eBay store, Pop Anime Comics Collectibles. And yes, I have all 15 of these books in hollow foil. I bought out that print run. It was very climatic. I was very proud of myself when I did that. I also bought out this one as well. So if you're looking for those books and talking about big booby books, I got you covered. And then I also have a few of these in, but they're hard to see. I don't know if you saw anything, Travis. Did you see anything?
I didn't see anything. No, I wasn't covered at all.
I didn't see anything at all myself. So if you get a package from me and you get that card and you see it and you're having a hard time when you open up the package, I don't know what to say to you.
Customer service, though, you'll take care of it.
Exactly. We'll just give you an attitude adjustment right off the back of my shoulders. But all jokes aside, obviously, anything Pop Anime Comics is mine, and I don't have anything else that I want to promote, so I'm going to give you the final word.
Yeah, that's it. Voodoo Nations, you like I said, in March we have Coins of Judas, and we have another Tales. It's called Tales from Canyon City, which is a break down one shot that we're doing. So lots of cool stuff coming up. Follow me at travisgibb.substack. Good. Click Voodoo Nations on the Kickstarter, and that's it. Thanks.
And I don't think I could have said that any better myself, everybody, and that is a